See, what I should have done was started this like an hour ago. Just the room. I should have just started the room like an hour ago because I come here and I see you there and it makes me smile, makes me happy, which is good because we were this close to not having a show today. I'm like, well, whatever. We'll do a thing. I have no idea how it's going to go. Um, yeah. Why don't we do a thing? Right. Hold on a second. I don't know how to begin. All right, I think I got it now. Am I recording? Did anybody ask? Hi, everybody. By the way, I'll say hi to everybody specifically in a minute or after the show. You know how it goes. You've been here before, and if you haven't, hi. Come back tomorrow. It'll be more together. Right? Okay, here we go. Apple's continued fight for user privacy, and boy, oh boy, am I counting on Mariah Carey. It is Thursday, the 19th of November, 2020, and this is macOS Can Live. I have never said those words before. I am counting on Mariah Carey. We'll talk about that in the second part of whatever this is today. Hi, I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you into another edition of macOS Can Live. Probably we were moments away, and when I say we, it was me and the people that I was arguing with in my head. We were moments away from not doing a show today, and that's still possible. I know what you're thinking. I'm hearing it right now, but are you? Second half of the show, as I say, we'll talk about. I can't even remember what it's called. Mariah Carey's Magical Christmas something or other, and it's kind of ridiculous. I went in the course of 10 minutes from being thinking that this was going to be the biggest nightmare ever to really now thinking it could be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I have worries. I know it's crazy that we're talking about it, but we're going to talk about it in the second half. First half, though, all kinds of headlines all over the Apple tech press today saying Apple renews its commitment to user privacy. Like it's a debate. Now, Apple is not, blameless and holy, right? There's a tech story that I've been trying to get my head around, the security story, and I'm trying to get in touch with because I'm lazy. Not really because I'm lazy, because I want to make sure I understand it completely. Patrick Wardle, who is a security guy for Jamf, he runs his own website called objectivec.com. That's objective-see.com. He used to work for the NSA. I have had the good fortune through the show The Checklist to be able to call him every now and then and say, hey, can you explain something to me? Can you maybe be on a show and talk to me about this? And he's really giving of his time. Unfortunately, I was not able to get him this week for The Checklist. But he found an indication that Apple is letting some of its own apps bypass firewalls. And he was concerned that Apple might, or that might actually be used to nefarious ends, that a bad actor, somebody who does bad things, not a bad actor, that a bad actor might be able to use that and inject malicious code onto somebody's computer without even knowing. And, since it was being waved through, I would go ahead and just say, yeah, sorry. I would just go ahead. I put myself on Do Not Disturb, and yet I got a message in the middle of the show. I'm terribly sorry about that. Anyway, my point is Apple does not always do everything exactly the way we would all want it to do. The fact that some of its apps are bypassing firewalls, and there may be good reason for that. All of that is to say, I don't assume that everything that Apple says or does is right just because Apple says it. I think when Apple says something, when anybody says something, there's, at the very least room to question. And if you take a couple minutes and you say, no, this is why, I think people need to listen to that if that is the real reason for it, right? I'm dancing around a whole lot the fact that I don't just assume because Apple says something that it's true. And that's always something that I have to check myself for, because honestly, when I started doing macOS Ken, I had very little affinity for Apple. I had very little love for Apple specifically. I thought they were an interesting story, and so I was following that story. And truth be told, I thought I would do macOS Ken for about 6 months and get a job with CNET. I've spent so much time looking at Apple. I've spent so much time focusing on Apple, and honestly, I do love their products. I do love their ecosystem, that I worry that I've gotten a little too much inside, the Apple thing, that Apple could do horrible things and I wouldn't know because they're Apple. All right, so I think I've made that point. Why are we debating whether or not user privacy is something that we care about? And I know we aren't. We as the users are not debating that, or I assume we as the users are not debating that. Although all of these organizations are made up of people. And so somewhere along the way, people are debating whether people's privacy is something that people should be worried about. Now, I don't stand to make a dime off of your privacy or lack thereof. Facebook stands to make 7 dimes, maybe even 10 if they're lucky. I don't know. They stand to make a lot of money off of whether your privacy is yours. So, WWDC, Apple introduces this thing called App Tracking Transparency. And what App Tracking Transparency is it's basically every time an app tries to track you across to another app or compile information on you, Apple's going to come up and say, hey, is that cool? And at that point, you, as the consumer, have the option of saying, yeah, that's fine, or no, I'd rather not. And some businesses have gone insane over that. Facebook keeps talking about the fact that it's going to hurt small business. I don't really think that Facebook cares that much about small business. And I'm sorry to say that so bluntly, but I don't think Facebook cares that much about small business. And I think there might be other ways that people could advertise without, building a profile on you. And, the whole building a profile thing is real. There was an episode of the checklist that we did, I want to say 3 years ago, that was about shadow profiles. And you can find that securemac.com/checklist, where basically Facebook is building profiles on its users, which is not surprising. And they're also building profiles on people who are not their users. That's the assertion. Facebook says it's not true. Other people say it is true, and they say they can show proof. You can go back and listen to that show if you want to. So what happened in the past couple of weeks, I think it was, a group including Access Now, Amnesty International, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Human Rights Watch, National Hispanic Media Coalition, New America's Open Technology Institute, and Open Media and Information Companies. They all got together and wrote to Apple and said, "Hey, where's the app tracking transparency thing?" Because it was supposed to happen with iOS 14. And then Facebook and some other advertisers said, "This is really going to mess us up. And there's a pandemic, and lots of small businesses are going to be hurt. So can you push this off for a bit?" And Apple said, "You know what? Yes." Now, I'll be honest, as soon as Apple did that, I was kind of annoyed because they had introduced a protection for me that wasn't available to me before. And then they said, well, here's the problem though. These people that are benefiting from you being unprotected are going to lose benefit from you being protected. So we're going to give them a little bit more time to benefit from your lack of protection. You're welcome, planet. But you can argue, as somebody did on In a Few Minutes when they were on with me, you can argue that, that's actually a good thing to do because, whole businesses would be shook, whole businesses would be rocked. There would be more jobs lost in a time when millions of jobs have already been lost. So, pushing it out for a bit is fine. Here's the problem. Facebook is still taking pot shots on the whole thing. The funniest part of this whole thing to me is over in Europe, you've got two different sides suing Apple over this. The advertisers who are against the ATT proposal, not proposal, it's a technology that Apple's built in that they are going to turn on. Advertisers are saying GDPR rules say that European consumers are already being asked this question. So you can't ask it twice. I believe they are actually trying to petition the European Commission saying, Apple should not be allowed, or iOS should not be allowed to ask this question again because this question is already being asked. And if you ask people a second time, well, that just gives them another chance to opt out. On the other side, you actually have somebody suing Apple for not putting it in place when they said they were going to, back when iOS 14 came out. So here now is this technology. Why do I not have it? Apple talks about the fact that when they introduced some technology back in in iOS 11, I was going to try to not just read the letter straight, but I want to read this paragraph. We pioneered giving users more control over tracking when Safari became the first browser to block third party cookies, excuse me, by default as far back as 2005. Since then, in iOS 11 and macOS High Sierra, Safari added intelligent tracking prevention to further limit tracking while still enabling websites to function normally. In 2017, as now, companies that benefited from the status quo said our privacy forward approach would sabotage the economic model for the internet. That has not come to pass. In fact, the internet advertising industry has seen revenue increase every year from 2010 to 2019, including the years following the release of intelligent tracking prevention. Users simply have greater control. Everybody's running around saying the sky is falling, and it's going to mean disruption. It's going to mean change, right? I have a feeling companies that make millions and millions of dollars off of us are going to keep finding ways to make millions and millions of dollars off of us. One of the points that Apple made in this letter back to that group of people I mentioned earlier. Sorry, I think I skipped that part. Apple actually wrote a letter saying, yeah, we're with you. Advertising that respects privacy is not only possible, it was the standard until the growth of the internet, says Apple, and also the app tracking transparency, excuse me, applies to all developers equally, including Apple, and Apple does not track its users. Again, that's kind of a gray area right now, or kind of a hard one to sell because of the whole thing with the firewalls, which I'll come back to when I have a clearer understanding of it. I'm hoping to talk to Patrick about that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to read. How are we to a place where our right to privacy is up for debate? That's the part that frustrated me today. That and a bunch of other stuff that really doesn't pertain to this show, so we're not going to talk about it. But it's disheartening, I think, would probably be the best way to say it. So I'm counting on Mariah Carey. I'll tell you why in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about something else that I did in the wee small hours of the morning this morning. Put out the most recent edition of the checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. Now, I'll be honest, for a lot of people listening to this show is not for you. That's not because you're not going to get it. It's because you're going to hear it and go, really? Well, yeah, really, because it's stuff you know. But here's the thing. There's a lot of information out there that we take for granted that other people either don't know or don't think about. This week's episode of the checklist, because there's not going to be an episode next week because next week is Thanksgiving. This week's episode of the checklist is all about safe shopping online. There's sort of a 101 and a 201. The 101 is just, the kinds of things that we all think about. Don't shop places you don't know. Don't shop on public Wi-Fi. Stuff like that. The 201 actually taught me a lot because I don't use browser extensions for anything. And apparently there are a ton of browser extensions out there for shopping. And obviously, when you're giving a modicum of control to some third party for your web browser, there are security concerns. So I believe it's called Safe Online Shopping 2020. You're looking for episode 208 of the checklist. You can subscribe to the checklist wherever you find podcasts. Although, kind of annoyed, when we first started that show, there was no podcast called Checklist. And so I felt safe doing that. It's called The Checklist by Secure Mac. I felt safe suggesting that name. Went and searched Apple Podcasts the other day for Checklist, and there are like 5 shows called Checklist now. One's a sports show, one's something else. I don't know. So now you got to be careful. look for checklist by Secure Mac, or look for checklist and just make sure you're clicking on the right one. Otherwise, you're listening to people talk about sports, and that's not going to help you shop safely at all. All right. I think I only want to talk about the Mariah Carey thing because it's dumb. It's dumb and it's fun. I don't really want to talk about the Mariah Carey thing, although if you listen to In a Few Minutes or macOS Ken on Lissa, you know how into the whole Apple TV Plus thing I am. And again, it's not that Apple can do no wrong. There's tons of stuff on there that I have not watched 3 minutes of C. I haven't watched 2 minutes of C. I haven't even watched 1 minute of C. There's a lot of stuff on there about which I don't care, but I'm really fascinated by just the different moves that they're making. Now, when they said that they were doing a special with Mariah Carey, and we heard about this like a month ago, month and a half ago, I thought, well, that seems awfully 80s, but fine. She's got that song, right? And then they came out yesterday and said that the Mariah Carey Magical Holiday Hoo Ha whatever is going to premiere on the 4th of December. And I read the write up of it, and apparently there is a lack of merriness in the world, and ain't that the truth? But apparently there's so little joy in the world that, hold on to your hat, Santa knows there's only one person who can help bring the joy back, and that's Mariah Carey. And this just had nightmare written all over it to me until I looked into it a bit more. The guy who is directing it, Roman Coppola, also wrote the Darjeeling Limited and Moonrise Kingdom. And he's also the sibling of Sofia Coppola, who directed A Very Merry Christmas, which is a weird, weird, weird special. I think this one is probably going to be a little bit more normal than A Very Merry Christmas. But just hearing who's involved now, it does promise to bring the weird. And I wish it was showing tonight because we need a little Christmas. And I personally need a little, weird. Apple has also secured the rights to a Tetris movie, by the way. I cannot tell you. Again, it was one of those things. As soon as I heard it, I thought, well, that's just a nightmare. A Tetris movie? Yeah, it turns out it's about the making of Tetris. It's about the guy who got the rights to Tetris and the guy who programmed Tetris, which is such a relief because I was afraid, man, that we were looking at like another Sonic the Hedgehog thing. But Tetris, like the Mario Brothers movie, but Tetris. Hey, I think that might have been a show. We do something like this every afternoon, Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. So if you're listening to the podcast or catching the replay later and wish you could have seen this happen live, youtube.com/Ken Ray is the place to do that, Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. Consult your local listings, as they used to say on TV. If you're in the chat room, please stay in the chat room. I will be by there momentarily. Oh, that's another thing, people who aren't here live. I go to the chat room after and I chat with people because it's a chat room. And that's what you do. I got macOS Ken tomorrow, got In a Few Minutes tomorrow. Mike Rose spinning the wheel of stuff. You don't want to miss that. We'll be back here tomorrow afternoon. Talk to you soon. I did not stick my tongue out at you. You're welcome. John, I actually talked about the fact that corporations are people when I was talking this over earlier with my special lady friend. Oh, yeah, that's right. I got one of those. All right. Andrew, Donna, Dow, Eugene, John, Bill, Laura, Paul. Hi, everybody. Did it start in the middle of a sentence for anyone else? That was probably just me, rambling. Is that true, Bill? I have no idea how this is gonna go. Okay, I don't think that's true for macOS Can Live. I think it's true for the pre-show, for the 35 seconds before the show starts, where I'm like, uh, yeah. The message I got in the middle, by the way, yeah, sorry about that, like I say. Eugene says Mariah Carey's Life Day special. Have you watched the Star Wars special, the Lego Star Wars special on Disney Plus? I think I'm watching it tomorrow night. I can't tell you how excited I am about that too. The older I get, schmaltz, man. Schmaltz is starting to be my jam. I think that's why I do lounge music, or like that fun little like weird music for this podcast. I don't know if you've heard it, or why I've got the new sort of like, borderline Austin Powers music from macOS Ken. Hey, Ken Goldman's here. He says hi, Ken. I say hi, Ken, back. Sounds like I'm talking to myself. Cool. Starfleet Universe asked earlier if people could hear me. Other people said they could. That's a bonus. Well, at least things are working properly. Funny story, Reginald. I'm in California. That's why I keep talking about Disneyland. Oh, Webb, it's okay that you're late. Although, seriously, you missed the best beginning ever. It's not true. Eugene says you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. In the European court, probably. Honestly, I'll tell you what I found interesting, and we talked about this on macOS Ken. It was just a story a couple of weeks ago. I'm fascinated by the fact that Margareta Vestea, who is the head of competition or the antitrust authority for the European Commission, because here in the States, Elizabeth Warren and Cicilline and some other people, I'm sure some Republicans as well. I can only think of those two right now. They're like, right, big tech has gotten too big. We have to break them up. And Margareta Vestea over in the EC is like, if you break them up, you got to watch like 20. Right now, you only have to watch 4. Just watch them and control what they do. And I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm not saying which one of those two I think is correct. I just found it fascinating that, here in the States, almost immediately, politicians like, well, if it gets too big, we have to, break it into 1,000 pieces. And Margarita Vestea is like, no, just get a bigger leash. It's just an interesting philosophical way to deal. What happened? It jumped down to the bottom. So there's Ken saying hi to me again because I said hi to him. So now I'm going to say hi to him again and then get down to the bottom. That's going to be the same thing. Oh, Ken Goldman asked if I got my HomePod Mini yet. Yes. You know what? That is what I should talk about tomorrow. I'm going to make a note of that. Second half of the show tomorrow, I'll talk about my HomePod Mini. Because what's interesting, no, I'm not going to tell you what's interesting right now, because if I do, then there'll be no point in talking about it tomorrow. It's changed a couple of behaviors. That's the most I'll say. You'll have to tune in tomorrow. And if there is a better topic that comes up for the second half tomorrow, ask me again tomorrow, and then we'll just talk about it afterwards. Where else are we? Hey, Nate got his M1 Mac today after it had taken about 36 hours for the client's data to migrate from a time capsule. Oh, you got it for somebody else. Okay, right. I forgot that part. Oh, thanks, Laura. Laura says she loves the show macOS Ken Live, and the checklist. It's a lot. God. So Eugene says that he thinks the Mariah Carey special has the same premise as the Paul Lynde holiday specials in the 1970s. I tried on Halloween, or maybe the night before, the night after, to watch the Paul Lynde Halloween special. Margaret Hamilton shows up in that as sort of like his, annoying Margaret Hamilton, who played, the witch in The Wizard of Oz. She was also, she was also the woman in the coffee commercials. Maxwell House, I think? I don't remember. Anyway, she plays sort of his, like, crotchety housekeeper, and then, I assume she will be a witch at some point in that because why do you hire Margaret Hamilton, for a Halloween special and not make her that? There's also the promise that Kiss is in the special. I could only get through, like, 5 minutes of it. It was I mean and I love kitsch. I think we just talked about that a minute ago. I love kitsch. That was not quite enough for me, or too much for me, or something. Laura asks, "Who was the original band that I used for the background music for macOS Ken?" That is a band called The Famous, and you can find, 2 of their albums, I think, because I believe they only have 2 albums. You can find their albums on Apple Music and probably Spotify, I don't know. Lead singer of that is a friend of mine, and his name is, Lawrence Scott, and then Vic Barclay plays guitar, lead guitar. Lawrence plays rhythm, and I don't know who the other members of the band are anymore because 'cause it's been too many years, but they're fun. Yeah, the first album was called I don't remember. Anyway, they're available on Apple Music, though, or on iTunes if you actually wanna buy them. I think their website is thefamous.net. Not 100% on that. Yeah, not only do you miss the Free Ponies Webb says when he's late, he misses the Free Ponies, but I actually sang, "Bring on the Dancing Horses" while giving away free ponies to the show, although, it's kinda misleading because they don't dance. Oh, yeah, there were 2 songs. There was a different song for the open and the close. Listen to the whole album, though, because it's great. 2 songs that sounded like 3 when Ken said the titles. Man, that goes back a few years. No, 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 no. Bill, that was, Cracker. "I'm a Little Rocket Ship" was a song that I used by Cracker with their permission, and, 100 Flower Power Maximum. Well, no, 1,000 Flower Power. He sings 100 Flower Power Maximum, but the title is 1,000 Flower Power Maximum. Anyway. Alright, so Cracker, Laura, was one, and, The Famous was the other. All, again, available on iTunes or Apple Music at this point. Thanks, Derek. That was actually the message I got halfway through, was from somebody saying that to me as well. Derek says, "I just wanted to say that I loved your opinion on Epic's plight being like the fight for civil rights. It made me sick. Made me sick." And I almost took it out of the show because it felt like grandstanding, but it wasn't grandstanding, it just made me sick. I mean, seriously, I was typing angry. Guy's the worst. Sorry. Oh. Oh, John. I also used to love Mission Log Pod. I'm glad they're still out there doing their thing. Alright, wait, Laura, so I got you into Mission Log or Mission Log got you into this? I don't know now. Yeah, the Fall In Halloween special was terrible, Eugene, and yet yeah, Hank. Hank says he saw the original Star Wars holiday special and he's still dealing with the emotional damage. I honestly remember watching that when I was a kid, but I was 8. First time we saw Boba Fett, he was a cartoon. I was turned on by the fact that there were, like, baby Wookiees and there was a whole Wookiee planet. I have since tried to go back and watch that, and again, I can get through 5 minutes, and then it's a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. Nate finished watching Ted Lasso. He says it's genius. Nate, I agree heartily. Donna also loved Ted Lasso. Oh my God, really? Eugene says there's a documentary on the making of the Star Wars holiday special coming soon. And Laura, you're getting more information about the famous in there, but I guess you know that. Light, Sweet, Crude was the first album, and Come Home to Me is the second. That's really interesting that Come Home to Me is the second because the song Come Home to Me was on Light, Sweet, Crude. I don't know if they re-recorded it. I'm a Little Rocket Ship and 100 Flower Power Maximum. Yeah, those were cracker. I have not seen Upright. John, I know. I think she's angry at me. John says the mission log computer isn't as funny as it was. I actually talked to somebody about that recently, believe it or not. And Kevin says he agrees on the Epic thing, which I'm going to try to leave alone. Guy makes me ill. Thanks, Nate. I appreciate that. Oh, yay. Okay, so Laura says that macOS Ken got her in the mission log. Cool. That's neat. I love hearing that. All right. We're now down to the bottom of the list, which is good because I have to go turn what I just did into an audio show. And then it's grocery night here at the old K Corral, except, not here because we're out of groceries. Thursday. That's when I go. I'm not going to tell you where, though, because you guys are wonderful. I honestly, I know I've said this every day this week, but thank you very much for being here and being able to do this, seeing you guys just like there when I get here and then having this conversation afterwards. Honestly, if I had canceled today's show, which I was really close to doing, there's no way I would have been in as good a mood as I am right now. And that's you. And I'm grateful. All right. But now I got to run. Tell your mom I said, hey.